Thank you everyone for coming tonight. I feel like I should have a microphone, but as long as everyone can hear. So you're here tonight. We're in this beautiful space, Foundry. Thank you for always being welcome. Giuseppe in the back. So you're surrounded today by an exhibition of physical artworks and their NFT counterparts, which are being screened on the screen behind us. I think most of you probably have experienced the app where you can see the augmented reality, but if you haven't, after the talk, please download the app, which is the QR code over there, which means you can hold your phone up and see the augmented reality of the NFTs. But what we're here to do tonight is talk about why NFTs and why to invest in them, why it's a good idea. So without further ado, and I've been slightly late, like I said, sorry about that. I will introduce our panelists and then we'll discuss about why to invest in NFTs. At the end of the discussion, there will be time for Q&As. So, please keep your questions to the end. If you have something burning that you want to talk about while I'm talking, please do raise your hand. But otherwise, there will be time for Q&A at the end. So, I would like to introduce our panelists. I will start at the end. This is Samir Jezzini. Samir is, well, actually, you know what, Samir, would you like to introduce yourself?
Please. Samir Jezzini, I'm a wealth manager by profession, investment advisor for whoever doesn't know what wealth management is. We deal with high net worth individuals, we deal with their portfolios, we diversify the portfolio for them, we deal with taxation, legality, so that's why I'm here today. I want to explain to you guys how NFTs could be a part of a diversified portfolio. I'm also the CEO and founder of Supreme FX. Supreme FX is an online trading platform. I also deal with gold, physical gold. We create the hedging strategies for them. When you import at a certain price, by the time it reaches Dubai, the price has already possibly dropped. So I do the technical analysis, so I can always hedge their positions.
Thank you, Samir. Obviously, we'll hear more about that in a bit. This is Jen Stelco. Please introduce yourself.
I'm Jen Stelco. I am also known as Stelco. I'm a crypto artist. I've been a traditional artist here in Dubai for about 11 years, and I took a plunge into NFTs 1 year ago. And in March this year, Anna and I and Claire, who's over there, co-founded MORROW Collective, and we curated this exhibition, and we work on similar exhibitions in the metaverse, and effectively we curate NFTs, and it's my whole jam now.
And we will talk a little bit more about that later. Let me introduce Anas.
Hi there guys, Anas here. I'm formerly a crypto fintech lawyer, but I'm now the co-founder and CEO of Arts DAO. DAO in the crypto space stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. It's a new type of crypto company that is incorporated onto the blockchain. And we can talk a little bit about that later. But what we do is we help bring traditional artists into the metaverse. The metaverse, again, another term we should also define. I'm also the host, some of you might know, the co-host of the Crypto Shakes podcast. We make crypto simple for everyday people.
And that is really what we're all about here. We're all about demystifying the... Hi, Alexi. Sorry, just saw a friend in the audience. We're all about demystifying this, I guess, plethora of terms which some people maybe are familiar with and some people may not be familiar with. About NFTs, about why they're a good thing, why you can really benefit to invest in them. So I'm going to open the discussion. Excuse me, I'm just looking at my notes on my phone. I don't think we need to explain what is an NFT to everyone in the room. I think everyone is pretty clear on that. If anyone is not, please raise your hand now. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being honest. I'm going to say really, really quickly what is an NFT because most people are aware, but an NFT is a non-fungible token. So what we have done in this exhibition, we have taken physical artworks and we have made digital files from them and tokenized them on the blockchain. What that means in really simple terms is that we've made a digital file, something that's unique, one of one, which basically gives it value. And that's why we're here today to talk about why that's important, why does that matter. Until now in the art world, digital art has not really been, it's not been easy to to give value to, because it's easily copied. And so I guess what the opening gambit is, and I might ask my co-founder Jen just to talk about this from an artist's point of view, because Jen is an artist. She's been an artist for many years. She's got, as she explained, she's been in crypto for the last 1 year. So Jen, how has making NFTs differed for you from making, let's say, a photo or video art? How has it helped you to as an artist?
Okay, well, from an artist perspective, definitely the best thing about NFTs is the audience that all of a sudden you have access to. You know, in the old days, back when I painted, I would do a painting and I'd be happy with it, and I'd have to put it in front of people to have a chance of it selling. So I'd have to find a gallery to exhibit it, or I'd have to take it to a market or put it on social media or something. Nowadays, as soon as my work is finished, the process is very much just tokenize it. The platform that I use is super rare, and there it is in front of hundreds of thousands of people all at the same time. And it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get sold straight away, but it's just reaching so many more people. And then on a more, for the media perspective, for the actual tools and what I'm using, I love animations and I love adding audio to a piece of art. I just really enjoy what digitalizing a piece of art can bring with it. It just gives this whole other element. It's like physics don't matter anymore. Yeah.
For the benefit of the audience.
I was just about to come to you, Anna. Go on.
I was just going to say, because we're using some terms here, I think we should define. I just, from doing the podcast, we always like to do this. Whenever we use any big terms, it's a good idea to just break them down. So tokenization, what does that mean? So when you have an asset, think about real estate. You buy a property. What's the first thing you do when you buy a property? You need to get a title deed, right? The title deed defines your ownership of that property. And if you don't have that title deed, can you sell your property? Absolutely not, right? You can't sell property without that title deed because it reflects your ownership. So for the longest time, digital works of art did not have the benefit of that kind of provenance, right? They didn't have the benefit of being able to have legal title being bestowed on the buyer. So when you tokenize an asset, you are effectively giving a given asset the ability to be owned legally, so to speak. So think about the blockchain as a new legal system. Right now, in the current system, we have courts. You have to go enforce your right in the court to tell the world that you own a given property. But on the blockchain, your ownership is tied to that blockchain, and your ownership is reflected immutably, i.e. it cannot be changed. So this is a very important concept, I think, for people to understand. Anything can be tokenized. Gold, he mentioned gold. We have gold tokenized on the blockchain now. There are companies in DMCC who are tokenizing diamonds. Anything that is in the real world can be reflected into the digital world via blockchain. So art is one of those assets where that's taking place.
You know what, Anna? You totally took my question out of my hand. I was going to ask you to please explain blockchain technology to the audience, but you did it without me asking.
I think it's a good idea that we also say that. So blockchain, many people find this term a very, very difficult term to understand. Blockchain is just a database, okay? Think about the way I like to describe a blockchain is think about a book, okay? You open the book, and every time you send a transaction, a line is written in that book, okay? Now the book has a certain quantity of space, right? You can't overfill, after a certain point, the page gets filled. So when you get to that bottom of that page, you have to kind of turn the page over, right? Now this is in effect what a new block is. And the reason, in order to turn the page, let's take Bitcoin. Bitcoin is one of the most famous blockchains out there. The way the page is turned is through the miners. The miners have to solve an incredibly hard mathematical problem to turn this page. And they get rewarded in Bitcoin to do that. Now, this is a form of security, right? This is the best way in which you can secure data this way. In order to, because to solve this mathematical problem, it takes a lot of effort. And that's why this is called something, you might have heard of this, proof of work. You have to showcase your proof of work to turn that page, okay? So this is where all of this sits. The transactions on Ethereum, where you're sending or purchasing any type of crypto asset from NFTs to gold to whatever, it all becomes a line in that book. And so I hope people understand, blockchain is just like a train, okay? It's a rails on which you can enter. We're currently in a different kind of system right now in the real world, whereby we're on, let's say, we're driving cars. But the blockchain's a lot faster. It's like jumping onto a private jet and moving at that speed. I hope that's clear.
I actually think that was really clear. That was really well done. Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay, so NFTs can be anything. However, in this context today, obviously, we're talking about art. I want to turn to Samir. Before we start talking about NFTs, in your experience, I really want to ask you about investing in art in general, not necessarily an NFT, but an artwork, because from a very kind of basic standpoint, why does someone invest in art? So I invest in gold, I invest in stocks and shares, I invest in art. Why would I want to do that?
See, nowadays, I'm sure you all are hearing about inflation. You are all hearing about the uncertainty in the markets going on. So when there's uncertainty in the market, you want to diversify your portfolio away from you don't want a correlation with the asset classes available that you are investing in, like stocks. How do you diversify away with an almost zero correlation? You go into art, you go into alternative investments. Alternative investments gives you the opportunity to invest in an asset class that is not correlated with the conventional asset classes available in the market. That's a very important point. Second of all, the beauty of art is that you can get margins, meaning that usually people who invest in art like to speculate. They invest in an art piece with the hope that the price of that art piece will go up with time. Now, when it comes to NFTs or a piece of art, of course, just like any stock, just like real estate, you should always do your fundamental analysis, meaning you should know who the artist is. You should see their credibility in the market. And this is something very important I wanted to discuss when it comes to NFTs, because you can literally nowadays, you can tokenize anything you have. Like we heard about a tweet that was tokenized. We heard about real estate. We can a pair of socks, which was one of the biggest NFTs. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah. So you have to actually, when you want to invest, don't have the mindset of why cheap. Don't say, oh, everyone is buying this. During the late 1990s, when the internet came out and it became popular, we all heard of the dot-com bubble. The highest number of IPOs that were actually issued went public during the late 1990s. Almost 90% of all those public offerings went to zero, went bust. Why? Because it was a hype. So everyone ran and started investing into it. When you want to invest, whether it was cryptocurrencies, whether it was NFTs, you need to do your fundamental analysis. You need to really, scrutinize the facts behind your investment.
Okay, Samir, I'm going to stick with you for a minute. Sorry, guys. I want to ask you, because you mentioned something that I think is a question on everybody's lips here. Doing your due diligence is really important, and I believe that's where, going with a platform like MORROW Collective is really important, because we obviously bring curation and we already bring a level of, quality to the market. But the question I want to ask you is about cryptocurrencies, because if you want it, so you said one point which is really clear: invest in art, because art is not correlated with gold and stocks and shares.
Correct.
So if you're an investor, you want to diversify your portfolio.
Correct.
Great.
By the way, sorry to cut you here, but today the CPI reports came out. It was around 5.3% in the US. It means if you have $1 million sitting idle in the bank, but which is cash, you're holding cash, a legal tender. It's a type of investment, it's an asset class. You are actually losing $53,000 of value. You don't know that because your money's sitting. You think, oh, the cash is there. You are actually in value, of purchase power. You are losing $53,000. So what do you do in a case of uncertainty when the U.S. is going through inflation, when they're fighting over, suspending the ceiling, the debt ceiling, and they are fighting over, whether to print more money, what are they going, you diversify. Not only art, we've heard of the LV bag going up in value. It's actually really hard now to get a Rolex watch. It's increasing in value, so it's types of alternative investments. Now, I don't want to go away from the topic because I know they want to sell their products and they want to stick with NFTs.
No. My question was going to be, you can go on tangents. It's fine. But my question was about this issue of volatility, because every market is up and down. Crypto, stocks, shares. My question is actually quite a genuine question to you. If I invest in an NFT,
you are diversifying.
No, am I in some way securing I have cryptocurrency. Let's say I have 1 Bitcoin. I don't, but let's say I do. Or let's say 5 Ethereum. I don't know, I have some quantity of cryptocurrency, but I know that tomorrow it might go up or it might go down. How can buying an NFT, an art NFT, let's just be clear here, how can that help me?
You see, just like I mentioned earlier, everything in your life is patterns, yeah? So whether it's cryptocurrencies or stocks, you have to diversify, especially in times of uncertainty. How do you diversify away the risk on your cryptocurrency portfolio is by buying NFTs. Why? Because NFTs are, for example, Ethereum makes it easier for you. Today, it's the most common used cryptocurrency to buy NFTs is ETH, but you could actually sell it for a currency that is different than Ethereum. Number one. Number two, although they are minted using the Ethereum blockchain, okay, any other platform could actually create that, but it's not public, so it's not as famous as Ethereum. But as I said earlier, that the beauty of owning NFTs is that you can diversify that risk, that market risk of the cryptocurrency space by buying an NFT that, in case, you see, if Ethereum, for example, fluctuates, okay, you could still hold that value of that particular NFT and sell it in a different currency. You see, it is not like, if it's 3 ETH, you could help me with this. If it's 3 ETH on super rare, you could always change.
Yeah, I mean, I can give you an example. So, say I bought an NFT 1 year ago for 1 ETH, and at the time it was $400, which it was. Then 6 months later, Ethereum is worth a lot more. That piece of art cost 1 ETH. So even if you were just going to keep it as a 1 ETH value piece, it's gone up in value because Ethereum has gone up in value. But you're probably not going to sell it for 1 ETH just because that's what you bought it for. You want to sell it for maybe 3 ETH. So it's gone up in value, the art has gone up in value. Maybe the artist that you collected has become more well known. And so everybody's throwing bids at you on this art that you have, and it's going to go for more than 1 ETH. And then with the fluctuation on top of that, you're doing very well. But in the instance that, say, ETH takes a big dive, you still are holding your NFT, and maybe 1 ETH, which you bought it for, is worth less at the time, but you just value it yourself as $400, the original price, and you just change the price to coincide with what you're willing to sell it for. Yeah?
I think, so Anna, I'm going to ask you to chime in on this, but I think what we're hearing from the other two panelists is basically that, Ethereum, we all know, in all cryptocurrencies, it's a little bit of a roller coaster. In the end, the trajectory is up, but it's definitely a roller coaster. So what we've been hearing from these two sides is that it's a way of kind of stabilizing that.
I think we should start off with some basics here on why some of the points that Samir was talking about, inflation is happening, and why assets are going up in value. This is a very, very important point, in my view, a very serious point about the world that we live in today. We live in a fiat world. which means the currency that we live in, the government currency, is not backed by anything. In 1971, the US government took the US dollar off the gold standard. What happened when that happened was it allowed the US government to print its money to oblivion, effectively. To pay for it, at the time it was Vietnam, they had to cover the cost of Vietnam. So they printed money to pay for this. Now when you print money, what you are doing is you are effectively increasing the supply of money in this world. So a larger amount of money is chasing a smaller number of goods. So you can have something like a chocolate bar, which used to be $1, suddenly become worth $3 because there are a lot more dollars chasing that chocolate bar. This is a very serious problem because inflation hurts the middle class and the lower income classes very seriously. Now the classes that do benefit from this are classes that own assets. Why? Because when there's more money being printed, those asset classes go up. So Bitcoin is going up because it's an asset class that is a hedge against inflation. Why? It's limited in supply. Limited in supply means there's only 21 million of it in existence. Ethereum has just pioneered a very, very incredible innovation whereby it's going to become deflationary. So over time, every transaction on the Ethereum blockchain burns Ethereum, leading it to actually be deflationary long term. This is why many people think it's going to go to $10,000 in the short term. Gold and silver have traditionally been, inflation hedges because they're limited in supply to some degree because they're limited by how much you can mine them. Now, art, this is the ultimate form of inflation hedges in some respect. Why? Because you can actually limit supply by a considerable amount, right? Let's take, for example, the most famous pieces in the NFT space right now, the crypto punks. There's only 10,000 of them. And why are they being coveted? Why are they being sold on Sotheby's or being sold on Christie's for millions of dollars? Because there's only 10,000 of them. And to own one of them now, in a population, so we're touching close to 400 million users in the crypto space right now. 10,000 crypto punks divided by that amount is going to result in a very, very high valuation because people are buying that because they believe it's a store of value and also a hedge against inflation. There are other reasons as well, like community, which I think we should also discuss. The NFT space is very distinct from the traditional art space in that it brings communities together in a very significant way. The metaverse, what does that mean? It's this digital world where the crypto community gets together, right? So NFTs are, they're blowing up on Twitter, on Discord, increasingly now on Instagram. The people who are buying these are buying this to be part of a community that is shunning, or in a way giving the finger, to the traditional banking system, but also traditional culture, right? Traditional art culture is quite snobby, and it's not very, very inviting.
Oh my God.
It is.
No, absolutely.
It is.
I'm like with you there.
And so the NFT culture is in a way telling this community, look, we are valuable too. And our pieces, which were for the longest time shunned, animations, digital works, people who, I know artists, for example, who've told me for years, nobody recognized me until 2021. Now I'm able to sell my work for 69 ETH, but I would never have been able to do that before. So there's a lot of things at play here which I think are quite significant in 2021.
And that's I think can you see what I have in front of me?
I've done a podcast on NFTs many times.
No, I think you also have a really good talent of explaining things in a way which really engage people. So thank you for that. But I do think we should mention the community because, one of the reasons that we came together as MORROW Collectibles was not just because we saw an opportunity in the NFT space, but because we saw the opportunities that NFTs give to artists, because it's really, you talk about decentralized finance, it's decentralized art.
We should define that term, decentralized finance.
Okay, go.
DeFi, because look, it's important for the audience to understand. Decentralized finance, what does that mean? Currently we have a traditional financial system, right? You guys all have banks. You require banks to do transactions in this real world, like paying for your cab to come here, etc. You withdraw money from your bank. Decentralized finance seeks to remove the banking system effectively, because what crypto can do is allow you and me to transact with each other on the blockchain through what's called a smart contract. A smart contract is a type of contract which is going to replace lawyers. My friend here, Jack, is looking at me with some apprehension. But smart contracts effectively allow two parties to execute any given transaction through a line of code just like that. So for example, if I want to buy a property on a smart contract, I send money to a smart contract for $50,000. The property is worth $50,000. It immediately executes. And if the property is listed as an NFT, I can obtain legal ownership or title to that property by virtue of me simply sending cryptocurrency to that smart contract. Where is the need for the lawyer to draft your deed or the land registry to put that on? So it's a very significant innovation in the financial infrastructure.
It's a very significant innovation, and it gives power back to the people, which is something that we believe really, really strongly in. And to bring it back to the context of art, and I'm going to bring it back to our artist on the panel here, to bring it back to art. How does that affect you? I mean, just to go straight from Anna's point, which is, I think, it's really powerful. This kind of, I'm going to use the word again, decentralization of power for an artist. How does being able to create an NFT, sell it on a blockchain, sell it outside of the decentralized system, not just the sales, actually, how does creating NFTs, how does it change things for you as an artist?
I will speak on behalf of myself quickly, but then I'm going to talk about somebody else. So for me, I can speak for many, many, many unrepresented artists who, slogged it out, couldn't necessarily get gallery representation. So we love art galleries, don't get me wrong. We love curation and we love what they represent and how they source art and how they build it. But they're hard to get into. They're very much top tier. So all of a sudden, being able to represent myself, I suppose, which is what you were just saying. Your friend who couldn't make any money in art and now is selling something for 69 ETH. Very impressive. On the decentralization, I want to talk about a guy who, I don't know who's heard of this artist. His name's Surianto. He's very, very well established now, and he comes from Indonesia. And what I'd like to highlight is that Ethereum has the same value here as it does in Indonesia, as it does in many, it's the same all over the world, everywhere. So for my buddy Surianto to earn what I'm earning maybe for selling an animation, this is giving this enormous amount of sovereignty and freedom to artists coming from from poorer backgrounds and from, less privilege, where they're probably not getting gallery representation because there are no galleries.
So I think the point, I'm going to go back to the discussion in a minute, but I just want to kind of it helps sometimes when you're in a panel like this to kind of just summarize for a minute. What we're talking about is obviously the opportunities to invest as an investor, diversification. Hi, Piers. Sorry, just waving to friends in the audience. So there's two really distinct things going on here. You can invest, you can diversify your portfolio, you can maybe balance the fluctuation of crypto, but you can also really, what Jen's touched upon here, and it's the sort of other side of the coin, is more like a social a reason to invest in NFTs, is that you can actually really help people who don't normally have access to the elitist, as you mentioned, this elitist art world. If you're an artist and you want to get into an art fair or get into a gallery or get in front of global audiences, you have to jump through these hoops, which are not possible for everyone all over the world, especially if you're an indigenous artist in Australia, which some of our artists are, or in Indonesia, or really Lebanon, or many places all over the world where we don't have maybe the same infrastructure. So there's two things going on here, and I think we just need to take a second to acknowledge the many different reasons to invest in NFTs. We're not just here to talk about, NFTs have huge price tags and huge exponential growth, therefore, you guys can all make a lot of money from investing in NFTs. We're also talking about social issues as well, and I think that's really important just to take that point.
Yeah.
Take a breath. But to go back to investing in NFT art, so to give you guys a little bit of a background, sorry if this is a repetition for people who already know about MORROW Collective. There are a few people in the room who do. We work with galleries and artists and museums and collectors, not only digital artists. So in this room you will find physical artworks. These are well-established physical, I use that word, but well-established artists who we have helped to make NFTs. And it was there, but we turned it off because it was kind of a bit annoying. And what I want to ask the panel now is like, and maybe we can go back to you, Samir. What do you, so a little bit of background about the art market in NFTs only. You know, we've seen huge price jumps from people who have been in there early. Now they're selling for millions and millions. What do you think is the benefit of investing in an artist who is, for example, I keep looking at this beautiful work behind everyone. This is Hazem Harb. He's a Palestinian artist. He's really well established. He's got a great following in the IRL, which is in real life world. This is his first or Genesis NFT. What do you think, Samir, would be the benefit of somebody investing in a Genesis piece from somebody who's already well established in the real world?
So there are two things, as you mentioned earlier, that you are not only investing in the financial aspect, but also the social aspect. Yeah. So I find it very important by investing in an artist. You mentioned he's Palestinian,
He's
right?
Palestinian, born in Gaza.
Born in Gaza, that doesn't have the proper financial or any relative infrastructure that we enjoy here in Dubai or in developed countries in Europe. So investing in a gentleman who's done great work from Palestine, that is a type of also, support. That's number one. Number two, when you are investing in art, it is, as I mentioned earlier, the same pattern just rhymes with everything else. There's stocks that you invest in that are growth stocks, and there are stocks that you invest in that are already blue chips. So if I want to invest, for example, in Microsoft today, Microsoft doesn't have much of growth left for it. That's why they pay out dividends. You enjoy the dividends. But at the same time, it's a very low risk investment, because how much down would it go? Fundamentally it's strong, it's paying its debts, it has a good valuation of earnings to its price, etc., etc. Similarly, it comes to a piece of art, if it's coming from someone who's at the beginning of his career, it's similar to a growth stock. The ceiling is high. There's huge potential to get bigger margins. Or if you're investing in a well-established artist already, of course, you are hedging, you are preserving the value of your capital, and you are gaining also a piece of art that with time, okay, although not as much as, everything is a risk reward. The more risk you take, the more reward it is. And every investment we do, we call it risk-adjusted investment. So similarly with art, if you are investing in a well-established gentleman, you don't expect huge growth, but you are preserving the capital. And over time, you will receive the growth, but it takes more time, but it's safer. Whereas if you're investing in new artists, you're expecting more growth, higher risk, but as I mentioned also, you are giving the opportunity, higher gains, but you're also investing, look at the social aspect of it, that you are giving other people of great talent, great capabilities, an opportunity to collaborate and to put their mark in the artwork.
There's also something I want to add to that, which is something that you get from investing in art specifically, NFT art, traditional art, is kind of this showmanship that you don't get from, you don't buy stocks in Amazon and then frame them on your wall and look what I got today. What I love about art is that you buy it, you invest in it wisely, but you also love to look at it and you love to show it to people. And this is why NFT communities are building up so strong, because people like to show each other what they've got, what their taste is like. They're effectively collecting and curating their own collections. Once you've started to collect a bunch of NFTs, it's not just a case of your mates come over for a barbecue, we can do this is what I've got, here it is. It's actually this humongous community that you've become a part of globally that can see your collection and can comment on it, and you know, it's enjoyed together.
Let's talk about that a little more.
Oh, you always take my thunder, Anna. I was coming to you.
Because I don't want to miss this. This is very important. And Zayan here, who's in the back, he's with the Arts DAO as well. He understands this concept very well because he's on Discord and Twitter 12 hours a day, 16 hours a day sometimes, really sort of working with the community. Now, what does that mean? So I own something called a cool cat. It's considered a blue chip.
You keep talking about collectibles.
Yes.
Go on.
Just briefly, I want to talk about this.
Stop talking about collectibles.
Because it's worth discussing briefly.
Maybe you could actually explain the difference between a collectible and a fine art piece.
Okay, let's start with that. So fine art does exist on the blockchain. And one of the most blue chip projects I know of is something called art blocks. These particular projects are incredibly valuable right now because the way they are bringing value to the fine art space is they create something called generative art. Generative art is art that is created in the moment on the blockchain by a number of different algorithmic codes. So when you mint, what does it mean to mint? Every time an art piece drops in the blockchain, normally what the artist does is they have their website, and you integrate onto the website using MetaMask. MetaMask, think of it like a bank account for crypto, which allows you to access the metaverse. It's like you wear, the mask, that film? He wears that mask and he becomes something else. It's exactly like that, except you become this crypto monster. You go into the world and you're able to see this new world. Now, once you're in there, you can participate in a mint, which is when it's a pre-described date on which an art piece is dropped. Different artists specify this in different ways. Now, Art Blocks is famous for doing this, but what they do, which I really, really respect, is when you mint that piece, a specific algorithm is sort of defined, creating a piece for you that is unique. So prior to that date, that piece didn't exist. And without you being there and minting it, the art wouldn't exist either. You had to be there to click at the right time in the given sort of time frame, whatever, with the right funds in place to create that specific piece of art. And so recently these pieces are selling for millions because they're quite unique, right? They're sort of limited in supply, kind of touching to the point I discussed earlier. And so this is the kind of work that we're seeing a lot of value in. Most recently, I think the one that I wanted to buy, but I missed it, it sold for 3.3 million. But you could have minted it for $200 a couple months ago and made
out.
The Art Blocks one. I forgot the name of it.
Oh, yes.
Sorry?
Oh, yes.
Well, that's one of them as well.
Those Dimitri ones? Oh, I love them.
Yeah, they're all wonderful, I think. Yeah. Now, perhaps you don't want to talk about collectibles, but we can go past that subject if you'd like.
No, okay, you took me down a path, but I think it's, as I said, I think it's important to define the difference between collectibles and fine art, because collectibles is where the big price tags are coming at the moment, and fine art is going to overtake that.
I actually think I disagree with you. I think the fine art pieces are doing quite well as well.
Okay.
I've seen some great pieces sell for quite a bit.
Okay, so what the reason? Sorry, I'm getting down your path now. But what I wanted you to discuss was what Jen discussed, which was like this element of community, which you touched upon earlier.
Yes, unfortunately, that leads me down the path of.
Go down that path.
Go,
please.
Cool.
So let's talk about collectibles. Collectibles are similar to what we're seeing in the olden days. Anybody here played Pokemon?
How old do you mean by olden days?
So,
like 2010?
Even prior to that, 1996. Some of us.
I was alive.
Some of us might have played with different kind of cards. Maybe you collected baseball cards. Maybe you collected football cards. I collected Pokemon cards at one point in my life. So these things.
It's important. Yeah, it's a really good analogy.
These things have now morphed in the new world, right? So if anyone remembers their experience of opening their first packet of whatever cards, often you have different delineations. You have a common set, you have a medium set, and then you have the more rare sets, the holographics, the things that are really sort of hard to get.
The shiny ones.
The shiny ones, right?
I remember.
And people crave these ones because they are a form of bragging rights. I remember if you owned like a super cool, Pokemon, you'd show it off to your friends and be like, oh my god, that's so badass, you got one of those things.
And
Fine.
you trade it for like 10 or 20 of the normal ones.
Absolutely, exactly. So this concept has been brought into the blockchain in a way. So when you mint, I talked about minting earlier, we all participate in the mint. You are randomly given a collectible. That's what makes it so exciting. I don't know what I'm going to get. I jump into a mint. Recently, actually, I participated in a mint, but I failed, actually. It didn't work out for me because there was a raffling. But what happened was, in one of these mints I participated in, I got in, and I was like so excited. I paid the fees, right, to mint it, and I got this, one of these collectibles. It was a cyber Kong. I'm not going to talk about that in detail, but it was a type of collectible. And now, I immediately went to check, what's the rarity of this? Because that defines how much value I can sell it for afterwards. This is what's happening right now that's bringing a lot of people into the world, into the crypto space and the NFT space. I know that it has some issues because it is reminiscent of the ICO boom that happened in 2017 with Ethereum, with lots of people just creating random coins.
Maybe you lost people on ICO boom, you lost me.
The ICO stand for the initial coin offering.
Oh yeah.
In 2017, lots of people went into crypto and just created random coins to sell them, and they were worthless.
Okay.
Similar things are happening right now in the collectible space. Not so much in the fine art space because it's impossible to do so.
I'm moving back to that space. That's where I'm going.
Let's go back to the fine art space. I think we've covered some important ground here.
Sorry,
Yes.
may I? So when we're talking about collectibles, we're talking about what's rare, and one of the reasons that CryptoPunks are so well known now, they were kind of like one of the first ones.
Correct.
It's really exciting. If you got one, you were super lucky. They were free to begin with. Now they're going for millions. And now I want to highlight kind of the early crypto artists. The one that jumps into my mind straight away is Xcopy. So he creates his own work, these animations. They're really, really cool. And he was one of the first crypto artists. So he's like the crypto punk of crypto artists, I suppose. And his work's going for millions now as well. A bunch of artists in a similar vein exist. And what we as MORROW Collective are bringing in now is the OG traditional fine artists who come from kind of this already a level of establishment and top tier kind of quality art. And they've been in the art world for a long time, and they've exhibited at, British Museum and the Venice Biennale and Hazen Harb, this piece right here, this is his Genesis piece. He's a very famous artist now. And what I predict happening down the line, say 10 years from now, these guys all around this room are going to be the OG fine artists, that were the first ones in the top tier fancy pants art world to take the plunge into NFTs. I think that is actually quite historical.
Yeah, I agree with you, of course. I think that's one of the points that we really, really wanted to get across to the audience, because I'm not sure who in the audience is a traditional art collector, who is an NFT collector, or I know some of you out there, but I don't know you all. I think what we're trying to say in this is, yes, there's a market for collectibles, these kind of rare baseball card type things, but there's also a market for one-of-one unique fine art pieces which may exist as a physical form and can exist as a digital form, and those two things are separate assets. And I think
let's talk about that actually in more detail, because I recognize we talked about collectibles, but I'm a personal owner of a lot of fine art NFTs, and I'm a big fan of that because I have an account on Foundation. Foundation is the opposite of OpenSea. Some of you may have heard of OpenSea. That's one of the
opposite of OpenSea.
I would say that,
okay.
Because OpenSea is an OpenSea. You can list anything you want on OpenSea, and it can be whatever. But Foundation is a little bit more exclusive. You need an invitation to get onto a Foundation to begin with.
Okay.
And on top of that, they only allow proper artists. So you can't have your avatar projects in there, so to speak.
Hold on.
To be discussed, proper artists from artists.
Yeah,
but
it's a good point.
Foundation is community onboarding. So if you're an artist on Foundation, I am one actually, incidentally. Once you've sold a piece, once you've had a bid on a piece, you get given referral codes that you can share with your artist mates. And when Foundation was new and it was booming and everybody was trying to get these codes, people were selling them, people were swapping them, you know, so it's not necessarily curated in that there was still a big boom of questionable art. But that art hasn't really stood the test of time. It's not necessarily selling, but it's there.
I want to get Samir to chime in on this. Not necessarily Foundation or OpenSea or these really specific things, but the question on the table, I think, is collectible or something which has a rarity based on its finite qualities, or one-of-one art which has a collectability or rarity based on its, in a more traditional sense, the provenance or the artist's narrative. I mean, I know that you're not an art person per se, but as a financial advisor or investor, again, not meaning to undermine all the things that you know, but like, what's your take on the kind of investment qualities of these two assets?
First of all, as you mentioned, I'm not an artist, okay, nor do I get into the art world too deep, but I met Jen through one of her collectors. He's a dear friend of mine, and I advise him on his portfolio, so that's how we get into that line. But generally speaking, when it comes to art, you see, I look at it with a non-biased view. So I don't look at as art if I like the piece of art, or I look at the fundamentals. I'm a maths guy.
Yeah, you're the opposite to me.
Yes. So I don't put emotions. If I were to put emotions in my work, I would go bust, just like 94%, which is an accurate number of traders and investors, they go bust. So my advice is always, whether it's collectibles, fine art, do your study. Check the source.
Or ask the experts.
Or ask the experts. Exactly.
No, seriously, I want to know your opinion as like, so that's your answer, just do your diligence?
Yeah,
I mean, okay, take the art thing out of the equation for a minute. So you have, you know, a collection of 10,000 baseball cards, which are earning their value because they're limited. But
I own a card, Khabib. You've heard of Khabib?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so I own this.
Or you have these, you know, these one-of-one pieces which obviously have value because they're one-of-one, but they have this substance and narrative behind them in a way that exists only in the traditional art world. I guess I'm backing you into a corner here, and I'm not really asking you to say one of it. I'm just asking you to weigh in on like.
Well, I'm not gonna choose.
You don't want to put your emotions in? You don't want to put your emotions in?
Look, at the end of the day, I want to deliver the right message.
Okay, please deliver.
Okay, so I want to make sure that, look, first of all, you gotta, like, when you are buying a piece of art, there are emotions. You cannot really put that on the side. You like a piece of art, you like it, you enjoy it, you're gonna buy it. But from an investor's perspective, okay, we have to weigh in the value. Look, I don't want to sound like, you know, the dreams crusher or something, but honestly speaking, I do see some things that are overvalued. So as an investment advisor, I look at reality, I look at fundamentals, okay? So whatever I see is worth investing in, especially when you deal with huge amounts of money, right? You don't want to, you know, it's people's money. It's their money if they are investing in. So I always look at what really, you see, scarcity offers value, but it's not always the main point.
Okay.
You understand? When it comes to stocks, when it comes to any kind of alternative investment, scarcity, but it has to also have some kind of intrinsic value in it. That intrinsic value, I believe, from a personal perspective, that it comes to the artist, you know, the type of work they're offering, their reputation in the market. 100%. These are some of the things you need to really look at. Now, similarly with collectibles, I would also look at who's behind it. Okay, who's behind
the team involved, etc.
The team involved, exactly. You know, the leadership. So these aspects. So I cannot really choose. Yeah, but from a general perspective, this is what you really need to look at.
I don't think there's a right answer, Jen.
I was just going to say on that, it's interesting you say you look at the person behind it, and something that's really that differentiates NFT fine art from traditional fine art is that there's usually a relationship between the collector and the artist. You know, I've never sold a piece without having a chat to the buyer. They'll contact you on Twitter usually, which is really nice. And when you're a collector, and I'm also a collector of fine art NFTs, you know, you kind of want to, you look at the person's history and you see how much they're self-marketing and you know, you kind of look for growth. But at the same time, you want to love the art you're looking at, but you want to believe in the artist, but you also want to believe it's a smart investment. So I guess when you get that marriage of all three, you're doing well.
I think that touches on many, many things, which is, again, this kind of like democratization, the access that you have as a collector to the artist to the collector. I know you're dying to say something, Anna.
I wanted to add something on her point, which is really, really important about NFTs in terms of appraisal, when you're appraising the value of an NFT piece of work. So recently I actually sold it, but I purchased something, it's a piece of photography from a friend of mine who's a quite famous photographer. He's got 1 million followers on Instagram, and he's built his following on Twitter as well, so now he's got about 12,000 followers. So those two things have led to a very key thing for him. He's got a massive community that supports him as an artist. So when he produces work, he's getting a lot of eyeballs on it, but he's also getting a lot of input from his community about what kind of works that really people like, right? So now, so when you buy a piece like that, so I bought a piece for about 1 or 2 Ethereum when he first launched. It's since gone up a lot to like 10, 12 Ethereum. Now, and what I loved about what he did next, now this is only possible on the blockchain and not possible in the real world. He airdropped his original buyers more pieces to reward them for being his initial investors. And you can't do that really in the traditional world. You know, I've never heard of an artist buying someone's work, especially from like a gallery, and then that artist being like, here, I've just shipped you another piece for free, you know? So with Jacob, he literally was like, you guys are all my best. So he's literally on Twitter every single day, interacting with every single person who comments on his piece. And so, you know, the amount of integration he has with his community is incredible. He then says to them, you guys, I love you guys so much, I'm gonna airdrop you free art. And that art piece ended up being worth like 5 Ethereum. So it's like free money being given to his original investors.
See, I think that's something that we haven't touched upon yet and would be really, really important just to bring in, especially Jen. I think that is exactly the kind of potential that NFTs, you know, okay, you invest in NFTs for all the reasons we've said, socially, you know, financially, but actually that is a massive thing which we haven't touched on yet. Like, Jen, I know for a fact, if she sells you an NFT, she will send you also the print, which is just an added value. So I don't know, this idea of, again, I think it comes back to really, it boils down to something which we touched upon earlier, which is the decentralization or the democratization. This kind of like, we love art galleries and we love art fairs and we love the art world, and I'm not saying like get rid of all that, but there is a real value in being able to contact the artist directly. So I will ask the artist directly to talk about that.
Actually, I wanted to expand on what you said, Anna. So I'm not going to answer you.
Thanks.
I've lost my train of thought. And it related to what you said as well, Samir. When it kind of actually puts maths into art in a way. When you've got this community on Twitter or social media that's following you, you put an image up and you end up getting this number attached to it. How many likes, how many retweets, how many comments. And that actually gives you almost a mathematical equation. You can go back through somebody's social media history and see exactly what their growth has been, and you can kind of predict what their growth is going to be. So there you go, maths in art. What was your question?
My question was about this, that Anna's touched upon, this idea that, okay, you buy a piece of art and then you get free art later because you're one of the first collectors. And he was really eloquently talking about that that's one of the benefits of blockchain. And I was saying this is something we haven't touched upon yet. I mentioned you as an example that you would send a print to your collectors.
I
with
think
it.
that's something that comes from connecting with collectors. Like you know them, you've messaged them before, and it's just you
Which
kind
is
of end up building a relationship,
It's
and
a
then you
big
want to give them
benefit.
stuff.
It's a big benefit
Yeah.
investing in art in this way. Like
I actually have a friend who introduced me to NFTs, and I gifted him some art because none of this would have happened without that introduction. You know, least I can do.
There's a lot of that happening. It's what I love about the metaverse so much. A lot of people who have done well in the NFT space, they go off and they invest into other artists. So, I mean, I did that recently. You know, I made some money in the arts in the NFT space, and what I did then was I said, look, I've made this amount of money. I'd love to just give this back to the community. So I asked to the audience on Twitter, you know, what NFT artist out there has not sold their work yet? And then, you know, we give back that way. And a lot of the leading NFT people on Twitter are doing that on a daily basis, which in turn is what's solidifying the community in a way that the traditional art world hasn't had.
See, it does sound a bit dreamy and a bit like, ooh, everyone holds each other up, but it actually is genuinely true. And I think, again, I'm sorry to rave on about the point, but it is something about this kind of like, we're existing outside the normal structure